All that we have invented, the symbols in a church, the rituals, they're all put there by thought. Thought has invented these things. Invented the Savior, invented the temples in India and the contents of the temples. Thought has invented all these things called sacred. You can't deny that. So thought in itself is not sacred. And when thought invents God, God is not sacred. So, what is sacred? That can only be understood or happen when there is complete freedom from fear, from sorrow, and when there is this sense of love and compassion with its own intelligence. Then, when the mind is utterly still, that which is sacred can take place. And I happen to have said many, many years ago, which has so true, that there is no path to truth. Truth, according to them, is a fixed point. And if it is a fixed point, you can have as many paths as you like. But if it's not a fixed point, it's a living thing, moving. Movement in the sense in the world of no time, which is a different matter. Naturally, there's no path to it. But you see, we don't want such a dangerous outlook. We want everything fixed. We want every object to be final. One has lived as a limited, contained, narrow individual. And it's very, very difficult to see the truth that you are the rest of mankind. That in you is the whole of man. That is, you as a human being is part of the world. You are the world. Not an idea, not something that's intellectually has been put together by reason and you say, yes, quite right. But the reality of the truth of it, that you represent as a human being the rest of humanity. Because you suffer, you're anxious, you're uncertain, confused, miserable, fearful, hurt, everything. And every human being has this. So your consciousness is the consciousness of mankind. We want order outside, in the world, politically, religiously, economically, socially. In our relationship with each other, we want order. We want some peace. We want some understanding. And if the inward psychological state is not orderly, not conflicting, not contradicting, if that state in consciousness is quiet, steady, clear, then you can bring about order in the world. Now what we are trying to do is try to bring order legislatively, nationally, and so on, order out there in the world, which has been proved over and over again that totally brings about disorder. That's why we are saying, Speaker I'm saying that without inward order, that is, the inward order in consciousness, which is in a mess, which is in a contradiction, without bringing about order inwardly, psychologically, you cannot possibly have order outwardly. And the crisis is there. Within the crisis, national, economic, social, and so on. The crisis is not out there. The crisis is really inward. And we are unwilling to face that. Who is there to tell you what to do? See, when we are children, the parents tell you what to do. That same mentality is cultivated right through life. In school, you're told what to do. In college, you're told what to do. In university, right through life, somebody tells you, this is right, this is wrong, this should be done, that should not be done. Which means what? There is no self-investigation. There is no saying, I am really the rest of mankind, but you are. Because every human being right through the world goes through a great deal of suffering, great deal of pain, great deal of anxiety, uncertain, confused, insecure, like you, like the rest of the world. We don't accept that. We think my suffering is totally separate from other people's suffering. And so we have this mentality that I must have somebody to tell me what to do. Right from the Pope down to the poor parish priest. Really, one should ask a question, why human beings, though they have extraordinary knowledge, and yet nobody is willing to change? Why? Is it that they find security in the habit, in the pattern? Your pattern, my pattern, the Christian pattern, the Hindu pattern, the Buddhist. They're all patterns, a way of thinking. So, patterns may be dangerous altogether because they divide people. And religions have divided people. Their rituals, their beliefs, their faith, their saviors. Now, to break away from all that requires intelligence, requires investigation, study. Nobody is willing to do that. From childhood, we are taught comparison. We say you must be as clever as your brother. Or in school, you get better marks than somebody else. So you're always being compared, and you learn to compare, don't you? I say, don't compare yourself with anybody. Without that, freeing yourself from your tradition, your culture, your belief, how can you find out anything? You can repeat what the Gita said, or the Upanishads, or some other book. What value has it? I was told the other day, some of the gurus now give lectures or talks on Gita. Is that right? Yes. And there are hundreds and thousands go and listen to it. what value has it? What are we all playing at, sirs? Apparently, one doesn't see one's own tragedy. Right, sir? Psychologically, why should I accept what somebody else says? When I realize that I am the rest of mankind. Mankind is me. The me is the history of mankind, the book of mankind. If I know how to read it, I don't depend on anybody. So, can I, without distortion, without prejudice, without choice, be aware of the content of this book, which is me? To read it very carefully, never distorting it, requires a great deal of attention, great deal of energy, intensity, immediacy. And we are not willing to do all that because we think that's too tiresome. Tell me quickly what to do and I will do it, or I may not do it. Generally, I may not do it. And I personally think that this psychological guidance by another, whether it is the religious guidance or the the guidance of the psychologists, is totally wrong as far as because then you're making humanity into children who have to be guided, told, encouraged. We are grown-up human beings after. So one asks, what are you interested in? I think that's a legitimate question. You can talk about love, freedom, and the beauty of the sky, but there's only outside interest. But basically, what are we interested in? That's right. You are interested in yourself, right? Which are perfectly right. Each one is interested in himself. On that, our society, culture, religion is based, right? Each one interested in himself, his progress, his expression, in all the rest of it. Do you, as a human being, realize that we are all one, basically? Not as an idea, but as a fact. Because when you go to India, you see the misery, the confusion, the anxiety, the despair of people running to their petty little gods whom they have created. You come to Europe, it's exactly the same thing. They have got their Jesus, their Christ, they run, you follow? You come here, it's exactly the same. You understand, sir? First, to realize, not verbally, but in your heart, in your blood, in your whole thinking, that human beings right through the world go through the same agonies that one goes through. The loneliness, the despair, the depressions, the extraordinary uncertainty, insecurity, whether they live 10,000 miles away or 2,000 miles or here. They're all psychologically bound together. If one realizes that profoundly in your guts, in your blood, in your heart, in your mind, then you are responsible